Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the off-season, smoke season, as we call it every year. There's a lot of smoke, there's a lot of mirrors, we don't know what's going on. And today was just like smoke season always is. There's rumors. What do we make of them? And we're going to talk about it. As you know, the 49ers fired Steve Wilks. Kyle Shanahan had a Vince McMahon moment with Steve Wilks and said, "You're fired," right? He told him he was fired. And now the 49ers need a defensive coordinator. And the big question is, who is it going to be? We don't know. There's a lot of rumors already starting. Today, the big rumor of the day was Brandon Staley, former Chargers head coach, who was not a really good head coach. He kind of squandered those Chargers seasons away. Had great talent, squandered away. But before he was a head coach, he was a Rams defensive coordinator. He was actually a pretty good defensive coordinator. So in terms of coordinators, he's not a bad defense coordinator. Again, he was with the Rams. He has the system. He knows the system. He knows Kyle's system. And it kind of makes sense. But at the same time, I think people don't want him because he made a lot of poor decisions in terms of being a head coach at the Chargers. Then at one point he said, "I'm going to take over, play calling," and it just wasn't good, right? One good thing about Brandon Staley is he has ties and connections to Joey Bosa, big bear, small bear. Maybe you can bring Joey Bosa over for a discount. But at the same time, do you think that Brandon Staley is a championship caliber defensive coordinator? Do you think that's an upgrade over Steve Wilks? Is it going to be a move where you're at the same level you had with DeMeco Ryans, who I think is a fantastic championship level coordinator, and he's a great head coach, championship level head coach, maybe? First year as a head coach, he's been phenomenal. So it begs the question, is Brandon Staley a good defensive coordinator? He's probably a better defensive coordinator than he is a head coach, but I don't know if I want him as a defensive coordinator because there's other options out there. There's Mike Vrabel, who I would love to have. He was a good head coach, great defensive, play caller. He's in the Belichick, school of thought, and a lot of people want Belly. But if you can't get Belly, you get the next best thing. His DC guy, right? His defensive guy. You get Vrabel for a year or two, win a championship, and then he'll solidify himself. Then go get a head coaching job again, right? There's Pete Carroll, former defense coordinator of the 49ers, way back in the day. Guy's a great defensive guru, but he is a little on the older side. I don't know if you want a guy that old, and again, you have to have a guy that's going to mesh with Kyle. I love Pete Carroll. He's a Bay Area guy, but would he vibe with Kyle? I don't know. That's a big question. So, Jonathan Morales says Brandon Staley's character could be a problem. I don't mind his scheme, but his character is something. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, is he a guy that's gonna vibe with this team? And to me, you want a guy that's gonna walk into that locker room and command a presence, and you're like, okay, yeah, that's the DC, that's the guy, right? Purdy villain arc. Let's go, maybe. Pete is in great shape. Pete, for his age, man, that guy's in tip top shape. Pete would be a very intriguing possibility. But what do you guys think? Brandon Staley, yes, no? I've heard a lot of no's. I heard a lot of hell no's out there today on the comments. What are your guys' thoughts on Brandon Staley? I like what Don says. We need a young, fiery, dominant, kick-ass type. I don't know about young, but I want a guy with some experience, a fiery guy. I want some guy that's going to bring some energy to this defense. Again, when he walks into that locker room and he addresses the team, I want them to be like, oh, shit, that's our guy. Let me listen to him and see what he's got. And a guy that just takes over the room. And, you got to look at the Chiefs. They got Spags. This guy's a 4-time Super Bowl champ as a DC. Like, that is Andy Reid's ace in the hole. Kyle needs that ace in the hole. He didn't trust Steve Wilks. In terms of the whole Steve Wilks situation, people are saying he's a scapegoat. No, he's not. They almost fired him mid-season. There was a 3-game skid. Burrow, Kirk Cousins were diming this guy's defense up. Again, I do think he made some good things happen this year. He helped Mooney Ward and Diamo Lenore kind of become the cornerbacks that they really became this year. Very good, in terms of DB. He's a DB guy, but I don't think he made this defense elite in any sense of the name. And when you have the talent on this roster, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, you better be a top 5 defense. You know what I mean? So the talent was there. The talent's going to get you wins and stats and all that stuff. It was kind of an easy transition to go from DeMeco to Steve Wilks. He just had to come in and help the defense to the back end. But again, I don't think he was a scapegoat. Him and Kyle didn't seem eye to eye a lot. And that's the thing. The next guy, Kyle has to really trust. I don't think he trusts Steve Wilks, just like the quarterback situation. I don't think Kyle trusted the quarterbacks before he got Purdy. We all know that. Didn't trust Jimmy. He didn't trust Trey. He didn't trust those guys. And he didn't trust Steve Wilks, in my opinion. So, my man FBI says Wilks was given a Ferrari and he drove it like a Prius. Absolutely. He was given the keys to a Ferrari. Bro drove it like a Honda Civic. No disrespect to Honda Civics because I have one. I love a Honda Civic, but if you have a Ferrari, don't drive it like a Honda Civic. You know what I mean? So, let me go with some of your comments. You guys are hyped in the chat tonight. Shout out to the chat. Lively as always. I love you guys so much. Shout out to all the people that are on the chat tonight. Make sure you hit that like button. My man Red Eye. I always like his takes here. I like Red Eye. He's a good contributor to the chat. He says, not Staley. Take Vrabel. Vrabel has a 3-3 record versus Mahomes. Oh, I like that. He's beaten Mahomes. Kyle's record, 0 wins. That right. See, that's why I like Red Eye. He has some good stuff. It contributes a lot of good comments to the chat. My boy says Vrabel is 3-3 heads up against Mahomes. That right there is what the 49ers need. We need a guy that has beaten Mahomes before. Because Kyle Shanahan has not beaten Patrick Mahomes. You're absolutely right. That is a beautiful take right there. Boom, boom, money. Let's see. Vrabel seems like the best choice, says NOV. I agree. I think he's the guy. He's, to me, would be the home run, knock it out of the park. Oh, my God, that's the move. Vrabel? Kyle Shanahan? Sheesh. I think that'd be nice. Hey, Peter Parker says, bring us Mike Vrabel. Robbie says he was an awful head coach. This is Brandon Staley, but he was a great DC. I agree. No one would hire him as their head coach. This would mean stability for defense for years, or until Salah gets fired, or go get Belichick. Yeah, I think Brandon Staley is a good defensive coordinator. But again, the stigma he had from losing, and being a bad head coach, I don't know if that's gonna, travel down with him, if it's gonna kind of transfer. Because again, he was kind of on the right path. He was a really solid DC, became a head coach, and it just fell apart. Like mentally, I don't know how you rebound from that. But in the coaching world, you you go back to the drawing board, you scratch it off, and then you go back to the go back and try again. So in coaching, we see so many people get recycled and thrown around, like Dan Campbell, Dan Quinn's. All these guys have been, not Dan Campbell, sorry, Dan Quinn. And all these guys that get fired and then rehired all over the place. Ron, Rivera. Every time you see a coach, he gets fired somewhere, and then you see him in another job. You're like, well, how did he get a job? He was just fired from another place. But that's coaching. People round and round. They go around in a carousel, and then maybe this guy's the good fit for us. He didn't fit over there, but maybe he fits this team. It's interesting how it works. My man Rashad, what's good, Rashad? He says Richard Sherman will not be a great fit for the defense coordinator. I think he'd be great for the quarterback coach. And I think that's what Richard Sherman has said. I love Richard. I think he'd be a great DB coach. And he said it. He goes, for my first job, being a coach, because he's never coached before, his first job going from not having any coach experience to DC, that's a big jump. Now, I think he's a phenomenal football mind. I think at one day he will be a great defense coordinator. But for your first job, that's a lot. That's a lot of, pressure and, a lot to absorb, as a new coach. I don't think that's the job he wants. He wants a successful transition to coaching. I think Sherman one day will coach, but you want to be successful. You don't want to be thrown to the wolves, because if he fails, oh, man, it's going to be a bad stigma, just like Staley, right? Brandon Staley failed as a head coach. Now he has the stigma of being a horrendous coach, right? That's why whenever everybody was tweeting about, Brandon Staley today, people were like, oh, God, no, because of the fact he had a bad time as a head coach. So people remember it. It's recency bias. Is, Richard Sherman a great football mind? Absolutely. But if he goes in and becomes a defense coordinator and he does a bad job, people will say he's not a good coach. Brandon Staley, good defensive coordinator, like we said, but he was a shitty head coach, and now people say he's not a good coach. So that stigma carries around with players and coaches and front office members. So I don't know if the 49ers want to deal with the guy that's just coming off of a really bad, situation in the Chargers, because that's going to go along with the Niners. And then people are going to be like, oh, my God, I can't believe they hired Brandon Staley. Oh, my God. Although to the point of, hey, if he can prove himself and shove it to everybody, he can say, hey, guess what? Keep the receipts. I proved you wrong, just like Brock Purdy, right? People are going to hate Brock Purdy. He goes out there, plays great, and it's like, oh, wow, keep the receipts. So, in a sense, Brandon Staley has a chip, a Dorito bag chip on his back, on his shoulder, right? So he does have a bag of chip on his shoulders. Although I don't want him as the DC, but I would see where they're going with this. You know what I mean? He knows the system. Let's see. Derrick Henry. No, I don't know if they're good. Derrick Henry. Niners have a lot of pressing issues. Offensive line is probably the first and foremost. And Brandon Aiyuk, they got to figure that whole extension going forward. My man Rick says, I got a question to answer. I'm going to be right here listening to you, please. What he's doing and Lynch does changes instead of leaving the team. I don't think Lynch is, if you're saying is John Lynch going anywhere, I don't think he is. Sherman for DB coach. Yeah, I agree. What's up, Miguel? You didn't miss much. Didn't miss much. Let's see. Vrabel is a perfect fit. He's aggressive and smart. I agree. I think Vrabel's the best fit for the team. I like it. My man Carl Thomas says, my worst fear is that our run for 6 Super Bowl rings may be stopped. I mean, that's always the fear. We've been waiting 29 years, and now we're going on 30. Can they get it back? Can they get back to the top of the mountain? I don't know. And it's hard. You know, the 49ers have been so close so many times. What do they have to do to get back to the top? Fix the O-line first and foremost. I don't know, man. They got to figure out a way to beat a guy like Mahomes. That's it. If you're going to be in the Super Bowl, chances are you're playing Mahomes or one of these other elite quarterbacks. And can they stop quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes? They've had a hard time stopping, the read option and those types of plays. And not only that, when they get to big games, the 49ers just shoot themselves in the foot. Self-inflicted wounds so many times. We've seen it time and time again. Not just this Kyle Shanahan-led team, but in the past, we all remembered Kyle Williams, and then flash forward, Jaquaski Tart, Emmanuel Sanders overthrow, just so many big moments that you're just like, oh my God. So self-inflicted wounds, mistakes, bad luck. What are they going to do? But the best thing is the 49ers still have an elite team. They got a hell of a squad. We know the offseason is going to be wild, but at the end of it, we're going to have a great team, and they're going to be in contention again next year. So what do they have to do to get over the hump? I think the biggest issue in this game that I saw was definitely offensive line, D-line, getting tired towards the end, a linebacker getting hurt, Drake Greenlaw, that was a tough injury, but they need to make sure that their backups are developing and able to kind of come in and be that next man up, because Drake Greenlaw was a huge loss, and they took a huge step down when he was out. Like, we saw Fred Warner crying. Oren Burks, he tried his hardest, but he's not Drake Greenlaw. So who are they going to get to shore up that spot? Because Greenlaw today had successful surgery to repair his torn Achilles, and he's going to make a full recovery, but it was a full tear. That's a surgery that's a recovery from 6 to 9 months, depending, so that's a long recovery. Who are they going to get to help bridge the gap? Is it going to be one of the youngsters that they had, D. Winters, Jalen Graham, or are they going to go sign a free agent? A lot of people say go get Azeez Al-Shaair, but at the same time, Azeez Al-Shaair, it's going to be expensive. They couldn't afford him last year when he was on his contract year, and now after his basically career year with the Titans, are they going to be able to afford him in free agency? I don't know. So a lot of question marks there, and Brandon Aiyuk, are they going to be able to extend him? Will he be happy? Will he hold out? Will he get a late off-season deal? Training camp, are they going to sign him in training camp? Is he going to miss his training? Because last year we saw it with Nick Bosa. He didn't train much. He stayed in shape, but missed training camp. And he said, it kind of really got his season off to a slow start. Deebo Samuel, same thing. Got his season off to a slow start. He battled injuries when he got paid. Fred Warner, he got off to a slow start, That's what happens when these guys get paid. So how good is Aiyuk going to be? Can they get that deal done early? So many questions, right, that we're going to have to kind of sift through. And then there's a lot of other injuries, like Arik Armstead dealing with the meniscus. Who the heck are they going to get for defensive tackle depth? And I know they signed a few guys today, but they're just depth guys. Will they be able to step up and be big parts of this team? Who knows? They've done it in the past where they signed guys like Ebukam and, guys that are really kind of unknown. and they made them nice depth pieces. But we'll see what the heck happens. There's a lot of questions, but the big question right now is who's going to be the defensive coordinator. I don't know. You guys tell me. Who do you think to be defensive coordinator? Again, my top pick would be Mike Vrabel. So my man, Hey Peter Parker says the guys they sign won't even make the roster after camp. Yeah, exactly. They may not make the roster after camp. They probably just, training camp fodder or, depth players right now because they're going to have to cut from, the 90 down to 53 by the end of the, training camp and everything. So they're probably depth guys that you're probably right. They won't make the final roster most likely. Very smooth, very not a very high chance that those guys are going to be making the final roster. If they do, kudos to them. So kudos to them. Let's see. Jason Lopez says, who do you predict the 49ers are going to resign and who won't sign? That's a loaded question because there's a lot. Of course, I see them bringing back Juwan Jennings. He's a restricted free agent. He's going to command a pretty decent amount of money, just like Kendrick Bourne did a couple years ago, maybe even more than what Kendrick was getting. I think $7 million a year, 7.5. Niners got to match that. He's restricted, so they can match it, and I think they should because this guy was so important to their especially that playoff run. He missed some time with the concussions. When he came back, he made so many clutch catches in the playoffs. So you need Jennings. I could see them bringing back Javon Kinlaw on a 1-2 year deal. A little prove it type deal. They do need depth at defensive line, especially with Armstead dealing with the injury. Clelin Ferrell. They don't know if they're going to bring him back. He had the same injury as Armstead. So I could see kind of Javon Kinlaw taking a little cheap prove it deal, to stay with the squad that drafted him, unless he gets a big offer somewhere. But, Kinlaw has had to deal with a lot of injuries. So I don't know if a lot of teams are going to take a flyer out on him. But I could see them bringing back Javon Kinlaw. It's going to be after that. Your guess is as good as mine. There's a lot of free agents. I don't think Chase Young comes back. I think they're going to cut ties with him because he might be a little bit out of their price range. Again, they got to extend Brandon Aiyuk, and also, all the cap hits for their big players are going to really take a toll on them this year. Nick Bosa, et cetera, et cetera. So I could see them not bringing back Chase Young and going cheaper to get some other defensive linemen. They need a DT, like I just said, and they also need an edge rusher. So we'll see. Yeah, definitely Peter Parker. JJ was almost the Super Bowl MVP. Debbie says, call Aaron Rodgers. We need Dre Greenlaw to get the same doctor. Absolutely. If I'm Dre Greenlaw, I'm calling up Aaron Rodgers and say, hey, man, what did you do to get that Achilles healed so fast? You healed like Superman, right? Superman. That's exactly what needs to happen. My man Steven Reynolds says, can Debo, Trent, Armstead restructure? I'm sure they can, and I'm sure they will. The 49ers always restructure contracts, and I'm pretty sure that someone like Armstead, someone like Debo, some of these guys are going to restructure their deals. I think they're going to see a lot of, players take the signing bonus to take the money up front and to cause some cap space relief. Happens every year. I would be surprised if they didn't. I could definitely see some of those guys do. I think Armstead's definitely a guy that can take a cap hit or a cap restructure, something of that nature. Brandon, 5 years, 100 mil. Whew, that's a lot. Carl says, do we draft an offensive line in the draft? I hope we draft an offensive line. Yeah. To me, if the 49ers don't take an offensive lineman in the first round, I'm going to be a little worried. Not going to lie to you. They do need offensive line. We've seen it time and time again. Last year in the NFC Championship game, O-line sold us, and Hassan Reddick shot through the gap, and they got a big sack that led to Purdy's injury. And then, boom, this year, big play, game on the line, wide open Brandon Aiyuk. Jennings was open too, but Purdy didn't have enough time. Chris Jones left unblocked. Burford missed a spot. Colton McGifford was looking at, I don't know what he was looking at. Maybe he saw Batty in the stands. I don't know. And it was bad. It was just a bad situation. Chris Jones comes in, boom, didn't give Brock Purdy enough time to scan the field, and they don't get the touchdown. Easiest touchdown they could have made if they gave Purdy some time to at least see the field. So, unfortunately, they need to make sure they get an offensive lineman. But, again, there's so many questions, and it's already off to a crazy start with the defensive coordinator. Jonathan says, Debo and Trent need to restructure. They're accounting for $60 million. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. 60 million for two players. Jesus, that doesn't even combine, Nick Bosa and all the Niners have a lot of heavily priced players like Bosa, Debo, Fred Warner, Kittle, Trent Williams, Kyle Juszczyk. These guys are getting paid a lot of money, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of do an extension on Charvarius Ward to kind of ease the cap. Also, they can extend them and do like a little restructure there too. I think that's something that they might be able to kind of explore. He's a heck of a guy. Maybe you give him a couple more years and kind of extend the money down the line. So FBI says Debo never restructure. Definitely a good thought. It's definitely a guy that loves his money. Receivers love money. Right? The receivers love money. That's why they go through the whole offseason dramatic, type moves. I don't know. You're probably right on that one. That's a good point. I don't know if Debo will. I know he's a guy that can, but I don't know if he will. So that's definitely a good point to bring up. And then Brandon Aiyuk, what kind of money is it looking for? What kind of money? Does he want more than Debo? Are you going to have two guys that are going to carry at least $20 million contract? Like, it's kind of crazy. Like, how can you account for having two receivers making that much money on your team, especially on a run first team? It's crazy. It's crazy. So that's why the big question is, what the hell are they going to do? Are they going to pay both of these receivers that much money? Although I think this is Debo's last year under contract. So maybe they restructure it. Boom. He takes his year and then goes off from there. So that's why a lot of people are saying maybe they trade Debo. Although I don't think Kyle ever would trade him. Guy's so important to the offense. He's the spark plug. We've seen the offense sputter without him. But it's hard to imagine them paying both of those guys. But then if you think about it, Brandon Aiyuk is on his fifth year, right? They picked up the fifth year. So this year they don't have to worry about. He's already got his money. He's going to make his fifth year option was like 14, 15 million. Then they extend him. Next year that money kicks in, right? They're going to extend him, and then he'll be making big money moves. So then after this year, you may not have to bring back Debo. So I think you could keep them both on the roster this year, and then next year you're not going to have Debo. He'll be a free agent, and then you might not be able to bring him back because you can't pay both of those receivers boatloads of money. So I think this year you'll see Debo and Aiyuk, but I think next year if they pay Brandon Aiyuk like a $25 million contract or something like that, I don't think they're going to bring back Debo next year, but they'll keep him this year because fifth year options already set there. Brandon Aiyuk's going to make his money, but he needs an extension. That means you take him, you keep him. Next year, you don't have Debo. That's kind of what I think is going to happen. Maryland says off-topic question, but do you think Harbaugh will keep Joey Bosa or trade him? That's a great question, and actually, that's not an off-topic question. The 49ers, they're going to have a new defense coordinator. Maybe they're going to want a guy like that because you also have to factor in, okay, whoever this defensive coordinator brings in, are they going to bring in new players? They're not just going to be status quo and say, okay, we're not going to bring in anybody. Maybe there's players they want to bring in that they're like, hey, Kyle, I need this guy for my scheme. I need this guy for my scheme. Blah, 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 right? Because imagine, let's go back to Brandon Staley. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to hire him, but imagine if the Chargers' former head coach, Brandon Staley, gets hired on as defense coordinator. He can say, hey, look, I want Joey Bosa on this defense. Let's make it happen. Let's try to call Harbaugh. Let's try to get the trade. Like, this can definitely be an option. Now, it's not just Joey. It could be a lot of different players, right? Vrabel, Tennessee Titans. Maybe he brings in some Titans. He's actually here. Maybe they go and say, hey, Kyle, I need this guy. Let's make it happen. So, absolutely, there's a lot of players that might be, brought into this team because they were with one of these other coaches that are going to be our defense coordinator. Now, the other coup de grace to that is, will they have enough money? And that's where this whole talk we were just having of, Brandon Ayuk's contract, restructuring contracts, who's going to get their deal mix? Are they going to cut someone? Are they going to trade someone? All of this has a bearing on all of those questions that you asked. Those are all great questions, and we're going to have to wait and find out. So, Super Bosa brothers would be dope. Ian says Joey Bosa gets injured a lot. That is true. It's true. Great player, but he gets hurt a ton. A lot of hamstring issues. That is definitely a risk of bringing in a guy like Joey Bosa. Fantastic player, but he does have injury risks. I agree. My man, Ask Joe says, I'd rather have my grandma be defense coordinator than Staley. If she's good, let her come in and have an interview at least. Us Joe's grandma might be a defense coordinator. My man Jonathan says Shanahan might revert back to the Shanahan offense, get a receiver who can get open against man, complement Aiyuk. This offense is still built around Jimmy's strength. You never know what Kyle's thinking of, you know? Yeah, I mean, I feel like CMC still, the heartbeat of this offense. You saw exactly what he did. It was tremendous what he did this year. 2,000 all-purpose yards. So we still got to continue to, run the game through CMC and the rush attack. But at the same time, CMC's not getting any younger. And how much more years of elite football does he have? How much more years of elite football does Kittle have? Does Debo have? Brandon Aiyuk right now should be your 1-2 option, right? We saw in the Super Bowl, he only had the 3 catches. It was unfortunate. He didn't really get a lot of attention. And to me, I think Aiyuk is probably your best weapon other than Christian McCaffrey on this team. Kittle was nowhere to be found. Debo was shut down. He played through a hamstring injury. I know that. Kittle, I think, played through a little bit of an injury too, but doesn't matter. It's the Super Bowl. Aiyuk was open a lot. It just didn't get him the ball. Because remember last year when he tweeted, he says, "Look, I was your 4th option, and I still got over 1,000 yards." Like he was telling people, like, "Yo, I'm good." Now imagine Brandon Aiyuk on a team that he's their first option. His stats would be crazy. And I think in the back of Brandon Ayuk's mind, like that is still there. Like, yes, he loves the Niners. Yes, he loves Debo. Yes, he loves Brock Purdy. But in the back of his mind, I think he's still got to weigh all his options. That's why I still think, there's going to be a lot of offseason rumors. And, if the 49ers don't want to make him a priority, he's going to go somewhere where he is a priority. And I think that's going to be a big part of Brandon Ayuk's offseason discussions. I think Brandon Ayuk's going to have to tell Kyle, like, look, I need to be a focal point. I don't want to be third fiddle, fourth fiddle. I'm your guy. Make me your number one. I get it. You have Christian McCaffrey. Okay, he's the dog. But other than that, I need to be the number one guy. I think that's what Brandon Ayuk really wants. And it's okay. Debo's great, but he's not a number one on this offense in terms of, going up against a top flight cornerback, routing him up, and, getting those passes. He's done it. He's great in what he does. The jet sweeps, the wide receiver screens. He's great at, slants and separating on those short routes. But can he go up and get those big time passes? He's done it sometimes, but in the Super Bowl, he got locked up. And I think Brandon Ayuk needs to have that conversation with Kyle and say, hey, look, this is what I need. I need to be your top dog. I need to go from the doghouse to the top dog spot. So Ian says Kyle's offense doesn't focus on one wide receiver. That's true. I think Brandon Ayuk wants to be that focus. I think he does. And as he should, and that's why I think there's going to be a lot more rumors this year with Brandon Ayuk compared to some of these other players because of the fact of he is a guy that you could put him on any other team's offense and he'd be their dog, their top. He could be like Justin Jefferson type stats. I really think so. So Baby Radiant says Chiefs getting away with all those holding calls is unbelievable. I don't even want to talk about that. It makes me sick. Golden Dragon wide receiver BA top dog on another team on a sign and trade. Oh my God, it would be sick. Jeff says good news is Aiyuk is under contract next year. That's exactly what we said. If he wants to complain, he can sit all year and we move forward. Facts 100. You're right. And again, the great news about Brandon Aiyuk, he is under contract. He can sit out, he can hold out, but not going to make any money. But it's going to be one of those off seasons where we're like, oh my God, I think they're going to let it drag. I really hope they don't, though. So, oh man, yeah, those holding calls. You broke my heart mentioning that. Do you know they've in all their 3 Super Bowl wins, they've got no holding calls, 0. See that stat today? That was outlandish stat. That's crazy. Ian Sharp says the 49ers never use the franchise tag. Yeah, they traditionally don't. You're right. So it'd be hard to see them use a franchise tag on anybody this year. I don't think they will. You're probably right. My man Steven Reynolds says we still have Ronnie Bell in the future if Aiyuk gets the bag like Debo and Debo leaves. Yeah, I mean Ronnie's good. He's a guy that they're still developing, but I just don't think I don't know if Ronnie Bell is as good as Debo and everything that Debo could do. But yeah, he's definitely a guy that you can, hope develops and add him to the roster and use him like a Debo gadget type player. He is a very versatile player, but he's definitely not Debo Samuel in any sense of the name. But What's the word on Danny Gray? There's no word. He just was hurt this year. They tried to get him back, and he just didn't. Wasn't able to get cleared to go back in the game this year. Unfortunately, he was on the injury reserve for a while. I don't know if Danny Gray's going to be back. I think someone asked this yesterday. It's a guy that I think is going to be a cut unless he makes a huge, huge strides in the off season and really works on his craft and can showcase to Kyle that he belongs on this roster. But I don't know if Danny Gray's going to be back next year. My man Ignis says, do I think they should sign or draft Brandon Rice? That'd be fucking dope. The culture needs Brandon Rice. They need Frank Gore Jr. We need Luke McCaffrey, and we need Brandon Rice. Go do it, man. Make it happen. Although we need offensive line before we go and get any of those. But it depends what happens with Brandon Aiyuk and everything. Go get Brandon Rice though. If there's any thought of not getting a guy like Brandon Aiyuk back, you got to get some receivers in the draft. I mean, Brandon Rice is a top flight receiver, but there's a lot of pressure on Brandon Rice to be so good because his dad is Jerry Rice. You know what I mean? But it would be cool. My man Peter Parker says, how do you think this team responds next year? Super Bowl hangover? I hope not. But, this offseason's not really been off to a good start. Although it's still early. They fired their coach. They lost 4 coaches already. They fired their coach, their defense coordinator. There's a lot of rumors still. You got players beefing on Twitter, right? Team looks mad. But, this is how it happens in the offseason. Everybody's mad. They're going to be going through all their emotions. I think when it's all said and done, but, next year, they got to stay healthy. And that was one big key this year is they stayed healthy. And that was a major, major key this year. They didn't really have too many big injuries. The Hufanga injury was massive. Armstead was dealing with some stuff throughout the year, but he was able to make it back. It's going to be tough. I think they can make it back to the NFC Championship at least and have a chance at the Super Bowl, but it's not going to be easy, man. Teams are gunning for the Niners. They're going to be trying to take them down. Can Purdy, develop and get better? I think he will. Because you got to remember, this is Purdy's first offseason where he gets to really actually hone his craft, like he said. Last year he had to develop through the rehab, and he had to, focus on getting back to where he just was, before the season, as the season was going on. He just had to get back to healthy. Now this year he gets to go and make himself better, work on arm strength, work on this, work on that. So I think this team can get better because I think Brock Purdy will get better. But again, health is wealth, and no matter what you do in the offseason, if you don't stay healthy, knock on wood, we do, it doesn't matter. So, yeah, I think the 49ers could go far. They're still one of the best teams in the NFC roster-wise. They're not going to lose too many players, and they're going to draft well. They got a first-round pick. But at the same time, it's hard to take it all the way back. I mean, the 49ers have been back so many times, so close to the championship. They've gotten to NFC championship after NFC championship. At some point, it takes a toll on you, man. And it took them 4 more years. It took them 4 years from the last Super Bowl to get back, right? It took them 4 seasons to get back to the Super Bowl. So, I don't know. It's a hard question. I do hope they make it back. Obviously, we're all Niner fans. We want them to be back. But that's a good question, Peter Parker. And I don't know. I really hope that they respond strong. I know they're going to be mad. I know they're sick to their stomach right now. I know they want to be back. Of course. Everybody does. Every team's goal is to get back to the Super Bowl, or the playoffs or whatever. And it just depends on how much, they can get back this season. Can they make everybody happy? Can they bring back Brandon Aiyuk in a contract extension? Make him happy. He doesn't sit out. Can they draft good players? Can they fix their O-line? Teams are going to be gunning for the 49ers. So it's a good question. I think they'll respond well, but got to stay healthy, man. And you all right. The Super Bowl hangover is definitely true. Either the Chiefs or the Niners are going to experience it, and I hope it's not the Niners, man. Let's see. My man Throwback says if they don't address the offensive line, I don't see how far they make it. Yeah, they got to fix that O-line, man. They got to stop. They got to stop taking the bargain route. You can't keep going to the 99-cent store for the offensive line, man. You gotta handle business the right way. You gotta take care of business and make sure you get some quality guys. Like I know everybody wants Brian Burns and everybody wants this guy. They want Joey Bosa. I want Tristan Wirfs. If the 49ers can make a trade for Tristan Wirfs, do it, please. That's what I want. I don't care about Joey Bosa. I love him, but we talked about he's injured. I don't care about Brian Burns. Would be great. I want Tristan Wirfs or a guy of that caliber. You get Trent Williams and Tristan Wirfs. Good night, Sally. Nobody's beating this team. And when Trent retires, boom, Tristan Wirfs. Now he can take over that spot, and then you can go get another guy that's great. That's what I want. I don't know if they'll be able to explain it. I don't know if they'd be able to, do it or afford it. Not explain it. I don't know if they'd be able to afford it. But hey, if we're just gonna be throwing stuff out there, go get me Tristan Wirfs. That's what I need. Yeah, my man Jonathan says the new league year is right around the corner, less than a month away, March 14th. Jeez, I know. Can you believe it? We already got to get close to this new league year. I'll be off that week, so I'll be ready to roll, getting all the content out. I can't wait. My man, let's see. Marilyn Wynn says, to be honest, the Bucks' whole team is damn near in free agents, so a trade for Wirfs doesn't sound crazy. See, I like your thinking. I love your thinking. Let's go get Tristan Wirfs. Shalonda says, y'all are sad and miserable sounding in these comments. Cheer up. It's granted. People are mad. I think I've went through every emotion this week, Shalonda. I was sad. I was heartbroken. I was mad. I was pissed. I went through and then I kind of went back to the sad route. Then I got back. Everybody's upset. We lost the Super Bowl. It's granted. People can be upset. I get it. Some people take time to get over these things. I feel like I'm a little bit more numb to it than other people because I grind the content every day. I see it every day, and it's just like you kind of get used to it. It's like, God dang. And also working in rehab, I see so many bad things on a daily basis. I see people in bad car accidents that had a stroke, cancer, whatever, heart attack. And it's like, okay, losing a football game isn't as bad as the stuff that I see on a daily basis. So for me, I'm kind of numb to it. It's just like, okay, it sucks. Like the fan of me, I'm devastated. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, shit. 49ers lose the Super Bowl isn't as bad as, patient A having a massive stroke or a traumatic brain injury. So it's all relative. But yeah, a lot of people are upset. This is their life. They love the 49ers. And I can understand why people are upset. We're fans. We love this team. We pour our damn money into this team. So, but yeah, a lot of people are gloomy, doomy, mad, sad, over the last couple of days. But I get it. Trade a second-round pick for Wirfs. Are you crazy? It's going to take more than a second-round pick for Tristan Wirfs. That is, if the Niners were able to get Tristan Wirfs for a second-round pick, they'd be committing highway robbery. They would have to be locked up in jail to throw away a key. Yeah, first-round pick might be a little bit better. But, yeah, we'll see. It's going to be an interesting offseason. Brandon Staley, it's smoke season, ladies and gentlemen. Smoke season. When is the combine? I think it's February 27th. It's in a couple of weeks. I registered for it to cover it, but they haven't emailed me back. The last day to register to get media credentials is tomorrow. So we'll see. But I don't even know if I could go. I got credentials last year and to the Senior Bowl, but my ass had to work. If I can get them this year, I might go. So we'll see. Have I watched the game again? Yes, I have. I watched the game actually 2 times, and it's sickening. So I watched when I came back, I was flying back. I had the game on regular broadcast and the film, the 22. I was watching them kind of simultaneously when I was flying back on Monday, and then yesterday I watched the mic'd up. Oh God, that was bad. That was rough. I mean, if you're covering the team and you're giving your thoughts, you kind of have to, I guess, rewatch it. I mean, it was painful watching the 22, and you're just like, oh, so many opportunities, so many times the guy was open, or Brock missed the guy by like a couple inches. It's just like, oh, and then the mic'd up yesterday. I don't know if you guys saw the clip. There was a moment. It's pissed me off. Like, you guys have seen all the mic'd up clips. They kind of annoying me. The first moment I saw it last night, and I think I posted it today. Kyle Shanahan's telling the refs, yo, okay, Trent Williams gets held. And he goes, that was the same thing they're doing. Make sure you call it both ways. They're holding every play. Kyle's like, they're holding on literally every play. And guess what? Did they call the holding? No, they did not. It was disgusting. Let me see if I have the video clip. I could maybe post it. Let's see. And then the other clip is like in overtime, Kyle Shanahan was like telling Fred Warner, "You gotta go for it, Kyle, go for it. Get the ball first." And we've seen Patrick Mahomes is like, "Oh my God, what are they doing? Oh my God, we get the ball second." That whole overtime thing. And then there was a moment where George Kittle, so the punt fumble, George Kittle takes a moment instead of trying to jump on the ball, he's like trying to be cute and says hi to the other player on the other team, and the ball is there. George Kittle had a chance to jump on the ball. That absolutely pissed me off. But yeah, make sure they call both ways, right? Oh man, this mic'd up had me in a chokehold. I mean, I hate to rewatch some of these things, but you kind of have to see what's going on in the game. What the hell was going on? What was going through their minds, right? And this moment, let me see, what do we got here? Let me see if this video can clip up. But yeah, it was rough. I did watch the game again. I hate that I did. But I did watch it.
We want the ball, front. San Francisco, you are still the visitors. What is your call?
Tails again.
He called tails again. It is tails.
We'll receive.
You want the ball. Which way do you want to kick?
We're going to kick that way.
San Francisco will receive first in overtime. Good luck, gentlemen.
They want it. They want the ball. They wanted it. Hey, they wanted it. They wanted it, baby.
We want them to have the ball. They want it, they can have it.
Hey, even if we score a touchdown, they still get the ball. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's rough, man. Last one.
Hey, 57 got hurt. 57 got hurt over there.
You're not going to believe what happened. Watch 57, Dre Greenlaw, after the stop on the punt return. Oh. And it doesn't look pretty.
No!
Did Dre just get hurt running out on the field?
Did Dre really tear his Achilles?
Yeah, they just said it.
That's depressing.
Yeah, so that's what I watched last night on Valentine's Day. So I'm a fucking sucker for pain, man. That shit hurt. But, I guess you just got to take it. And unfortunately, we got to be able to absorb that and move on to next year. And hopefully we hope that things get better. It sucks because what I say is all year we really didn't have a major injury. And in the Super Bowl, in the grandest stage, we had the biggest injury that we could have had. And that Dre Greenlaw injury just, man, unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. Marilyn says, the way Kyle was gaslit by the refs over excessive holding was beyond me. I'm telling you, that sucks. So they did. He sat there and said, listen, do you see this happening? Please call it both ways. And the narrator, I'm here to tell you, they did not call it both ways. It sucks. It just sucks, man. My man, extremely depressed Niners fan. Sorry I'm late. Got back from night class. Well, it's a good thing you're late because you probably would have been even more depressed playing those clips. Yeah, Blood Moon says, we're not getting Brandon Staley. We'll see. We'll see what happens, ladies and gentlemen. Anyways, that's it for tonight. I appreciate you guys for hopping on and checking out the YouTube and giving the support, all that good stuff. Make sure you hit the like button. Check this out, though. This actually made my day. So this right here, I don't know if you see, this is an official pin. It's from 1989 when they won back-to-back Super Bowls, right? When the San Francisco 49ers compiled a 14-2 record during the 1989 regular season, it marked a league-leading fourth time in this decade that the team had posted the best one-loss mark in the NFL. It says during the 1980s, the 49ers have a record of 117 wins, 51 losses, and one tie record, including playoff games, and have won 4 world championships. The following is a list of the 49ers conference, division, championship, and playoff game appearances in the NFL since 1980. So it lists all their playoff wins and stuff. A patient of mine gave me this pin. It was an official pin for their Super Bowl championship in 1989 because he knows how much I love the 49ers. He goes, you can have it. He said it was like he used to have all these pins. He used to give them away, but that was the one he saved the most, and he brought it with him, and he knew I went to the Super Bowl, and he's like, you can have it. You need it. He goes, there'll always be championships. Just remember that. He says they'll always be champions. Remember that. And I was like, damn, man. I was like, it hit me. So appreciate that. My patient's awesome. Give me this. This pin's from 1989. I won't play any more clips, Renee. This clip is from 1989. It's older than a lot of y'all. Shit is dope, man. So I'm happy that he gave me that. That kind of made my day. But that's I was like, man, that's going up. I gotta put that on the hat. Or I don't know if I want to open it. Because if I open it, it's like it's never been opened. He told me, that might be worth a few bucks one day. I was like, it might be. It might be. So any case, y'all have a good rest of your night. I love you. Bang, bang, Niner gang. Take care, man. Stay up. Keep your head up. We'll be back and better than ever. Don't go and do anything crazy.